Hi, I'm Henry, and thank you guys for coming to my TED Talk. So I'm going to start by talking about when I was on Facebook several months ago. This is right around the time of the primaries. So this is right when Donald Trump secured the Republican election and everybody kind of found out that he was a real thing. And Hillary was trying to do the same thing with the Democratic election. Bernie was pretty much out of the picture, but it wasn't quite there. So I was scrolling through Facebook, and I have 750 Facebook friends because my older brother went through all the people you may know, and he friended everybody on there. So there's a lot of people that I don't know. I see a lot of pregnant teenagers that I've never met, but I do know the names of their children, and it's really an interesting experience. So you see a lot of things on there. Like I see family vacations, pictures of dogs and food, and I always see politics. So this is something I came across. It got shared 350,000 times, and it was from a bunch of my friends. And so it had a picture behind it, but I removed the picture, and I'll show you that in a second. But I just want to read the quote first. It says, "If I were to run, I'd run as Republican. They're the dumbest group of voters in the country. They love anything on Fox News. I could lie, and they'd still eat it up. I bet my numbers would be terrific." So when I first read that, I kind of assumed that it would be a late-night talk show host, somebody liberal and somebody political. And it was, so I figured Trevor Noah, John Oliver, or any of those guys. But I thought it was, so I saw the picture and it looked like Donald Trump said it, and it said it came from People magazine in 1998. That's the same quote, and that's a young Donald. And that was, what I thought he said that on People magazine. I thought he was talking to People magazine when he said that. But it turns out that while he did say it in 1998, it wasn't on People magazine. And he was actually talking to Oprah Winfrey. And he never said anything like this. He was asked about running for president, and he actually said something really nice about how much he loves the country and about how much he would like to see it succeed rather than fail. It doesn't have anything to do with Republicans, but I still shared it because I wanted it to be true. And I didn't do any research on it, and I can assume that the 350,000 other people who shared it didn't do any research on it either. And then a couple months ago, I found out that it was fake. I saw it was like one of the top 10 things that people shared on Facebook just because they did. There's no research behind it. It's not even in quotes, really, so you can't really say that it misquoted it, but people just assume that he said it so it gets shared. So today I'm going to talk about three main things. I'm going to talk about what is fake news. I'm going to talk about how does it spread, and I'm going to talk about how we can avoid it. These are all three really important things, and they're all pretty simple, but they're all really vital to the election process, and they're vital in American politics right now. So I'm going to start with the first one, what is fake news? So fake news can be one of two things. Sometimes both. It's either, sorry about that, it's either completely manufactured or it contains some form of truth. So this one right here, is this like this? Okay. So this one right here with Obama's brother Malik just tweeted Barack's birth certificate and it's not from Hawaii. That's completely manufactured, and whenever you scroll through the article, you see what is Obama's birth certificate, but I could have made it in a Word document and it would be just as credible as what's on there. And so right there you can see Obama's face, and just because he looks maybe like he's in an African wardrobe, people share that and they assume that that's true, and that gets shared hundreds of thousands of times. Same thing with this, and then so that is what happens when you completely manufacture something. So this one right here is from defund.com, as you can see at the bottom, it's a little blurry. And it says, new study reveals solar panels contribute to global warming. So that article has some form of truth to it. So this article, it's since been taken down, but I screenshotted it while I had the chance. After 2 years, solar panels become carbon neutral. After all the detrimental impacts of them being made and being produced, after 2 years, it all kind of gets canceled out because of the positive impacts, because you save money, you're not using an electric plant, you're not using a coal plant. But this article decided to cherry pick. So before the 2 years, you can see a lot of negative impacts that it's having. And so that's what this article said. They said they cut off after 2 years. Once it hit 2 years, they cut it. And before that, they said, look at all the terrible things solar panels are doing. And look at all the bad things you should do. You should buy, what I can assume this article wants you to do is support the coal industry, support non-renewable energy instead of this. And so this kind of leads me into my third point, which I'm going to spend more time on, is how do you avoid fake news? So fake news is primarily spread through Facebook, And so when you can see Facebook and social media, a lot of people use it for news. Right here, you say percentage of people of each social networking sites who get who get their news from the site. So Reddit, that's 70% of their users who get the news on Reddit, and Facebook 66%, and Twitter 59%, and then the rest, they're lower stats, but they're still there. And Facebook and Reddit are by far the most popular by far the most popular social media websites. So that shows that a lot of people are on Facebook, and they are getting their news from it. And about 6 in 10 Americans get their news from social media just in general. So even just these people, 18% get their news from social media often, but that's 18%. So that's some people are getting some of their news from that. That's not watching TV, that's not getting it from a designated news app, that's just straight up from Facebook, most of the time what your friends are sharing. And then hardly ever, those people are still getting their news from it. It isn't as much, and those are the people that are probably more conscious of what fake news is and how much it can affect their perception of political candidates. And so this right here, portion of Americans who get their news on social media, so it's grown a lot. And just from 2013 to 2016, it's grown 10% on each, or it's grown 10% on Facebook, more than 10% on Facebook, just in 3 years. So I think that can show how much fake news has taken advantage of social media and how much people are using their social media platforms to share their opinions and share their news articles. So right here, I'm going to talk a little bit about Donald Trump, and I'm going to talk about how he has an impact on how fake news is spread and how mainstream news is losing its credibility. So right here at the top, you see the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. MSNBC and CNN are unwatchable. Fox and Friends is great. And when I first saw that, and as with all these tweets, I kind of thought it was a parody account because he is the president, and I think it speaks for itself. So when people see that MSNBC and CNN are unwatchable, and that's the president of the United States, he holds the highest office in our country. So people see that, and you can see right before Election Day that the fake news started getting more hits than mainstream news, it's more than 1 million. And so when you have the president tweeting things like that and putting in citizens' heads that the mainstream media is lying to you, they're your enemies, like he says right here, the fake news media, failing New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, and CNN is not my enemy, it's the enemy of the American people. You can see how that might have an impact. If they say, well, CNN's lying, well, why would I trust them? This random website, defund.com, probably knows better than CNN. If Donald Trump's telling me that they're lying, he gets intelligence briefings every day. He probably knows better than I would. And then the last one, any negative polls are fake news, just like the CNN, ABC, and NBC polls in the election. Sorry, people want border security and extreme vetting. That's how I started thinking about this for the most part, because he calls the negative polls of him fake news, even though they're just polls. They're what people think, and because he doesn't like them, he comes out and he says, they're fake news. There's no way they can be true. So, PolitiFact picked up, I don't know if you guys have heard about Donald Trump accusing Barack Obama and the administration of wiretapping his phones at Trump Tower prior to the election. If you don't, he's tweeted things like this: how low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon, Watergate, bad or sick guy. And he misspelled tap too. I thought that was kind of funny. And this received 53,000 retweets and 164,000 likes. And then PolitiFact picked it up because of 53,000 people are retweeting it. That's 50,000 more people, or that's 53,000 people that are sharing it with all of their friends, all their followers. Same thing with the likes. If Brendan, for example, likes something on Twitter, it'd pop up on my feed. Whether or not I want to see it, whether or not I agree with it, I'm still seeing it. I see it all the time.
All the time.
And so PolitiFact picked it up. And so Donald Trump's tweet like that, he has 4 or 5 tweets similar to that. And so it inspired fake news sites. They said, well, Donald Trump's tweeting about this is the perfect opportunity to write about it, and we'll convince people that it's true. So, for example, this It says FBI issues warrant for Obama's arrest after confirming illegal Trump Tower wiretap. So PolitiFact rated this pants on fire, which means it's the furthest thing it could get from the truth, but it still is out there, and there's so many articles like that. So I clicked on I clicked on this here, and it brought me to a place like this. It's called The Resistance, the Last Line of Defense. So this is obviously poorly put together. This is one of the biggest red flags you can look for. If you get to it and it looks like I could have made it on Photoshop, and I took one freshman Photoshop class, then it probably isn't the most credible thing in the world. And also, when you look here, you can see home, liberals behaving like liberals, news and humor. And so when you see that, you can already say in your head, this might not be the most credible source. This might be a little bit biased, just purely off liberals behaving like liberals. And you can also tell that this website maybe isn't the most credible because of all of these. I mean, jaw-dropping secret photos smuggled out of North Korea, breakthrough, simple biblical solution to weight loss, most brutal dog breeds that requires extra training to own. Before his leading role in Rocky, Stallone used to be homeless. So all of these ads are also written like fake news articles with the headlines. The headlines are intended to be attention grabbing, and they're intended to, I mean, the reason this one ends with a question mark is because people are like, well, what's a biblical solution to how I lose weight? People want to know. So this whole thing is a red flag. And then I scroll down, and then you get the About Us tab, and then down here's a disclaimer. I'll read that in a second. So the About Us tab, not many websites have this that are trying to mislead you, and they're not going to. And so this, I'm just going to read this one to you, and it kind of speaks for itself. It says, we are a group of educated, God-fearing, Christian conservative patriots who are tired of Obama's tyrannical reign and are ready to see a strong Republican take the White House. We are sovereign citizens who want our government to keep its nose out of our business. We believe in guns, God, and the Constitution, and will go to any length to take our country back from the whiny, politically correct liberal masses. So that right there also will tell you, you know, like, I mean,
it's a bias.
Yeah, there's a bias there. And so then, but not all fake news websites have something like this. So you essentially have to be looking for something like this without them coming out and saying it. So like when I read an article, I can pretty much tell that this is what they would write in an About Us column. And then down here, I thought this was pretty funny because this is the only fake news website that I've ever seen have something this blunt. But I thought it was pretty funny, so I'm going to read that too. It says, disclaimer, the resistance may include information from sources that may or may not be reliable, in fact that don't necessarily exist. All articles should be considered satirical, and any and all quotes attributed to actual people complete and total baloney. Pictures that represent actual people should be considered altered and not in any way real. So this right here is just telling you we're lying to you. So I'm assuming that's because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to feel, I guess, maybe it helps them sleep at night knowing that we're not responsible for we're not responsible for an influence on the election or people being misinformed out in public. So when you see an article like this, and it's called The Resistance, Last Line of Defense, when I look at this, it's not that liberals are any less patriotic, but it has guns and it has barbed wire and a big American flag in the background. That tells me that maybe this is more conservative. And the same thing goes with this right here, this defund article. So right here it says it comes from defund.com. When I think of defund, I think of Planned Parenthood. And there's two sides to Planned Parenthood. One thinks we should continue their funding, and the other thinks that we should take it away. The more conservative side thinks we should take away their funding. Liberal, the opposite. And so right there, if it says defund, I'm already thinking it's probably a more conservative website because defund Planned Parenthood, it might be more conservative, especially with a headline like this. A new study reveals solar panels contribute to global warming. It's already against renewable energy, which is more of a conservative ideology. And so whenever you're looking for fake news or you're scrolling through Facebook and you see a headline that interests you, you should look for headlines like that or websites like that. And when you go in, this, for example, this is the most dangerous kind of fake news because it's sourced data and it had data to back it up. And then when you go in there and you read it and you say, well, that's ridiculous. I wonder where they got their data. They know that most people aren't going to click their link and they're not going to go look at the science because it takes time and people are lazy. I didn't do it like until I started studying this for this talk. And so you have to go and you have to look at their source. You have to ask yourself questions like, do I trust this source? Do I recognize the name? Does it look professional? Does the data add up? Is it current? If there's data from yesterday and there's data from 10 years ago, maybe if this was from 10 years ago, it's a little outdated. If it came out yesterday and it's telling me the truth and it's telling me that something that CNN just will not say, they're trying to attack me, then that's a source that you should read. So when you're visiting all these websites, you should be aware of that. I mean, it's always occurring on Facebook, Facebook especially, Tumblr sometimes, Instagram I see it pretty rarely. But Twitter is somewhere where, the president has the most active social media account of anybody I know. He's more active on social media than I am. I saw he posts more times March 7th than I posted in the entire month. So when I see that, and when people see that, they think that the news that he's sharing is real. So when you're on Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, you should be wary of the sources, be wary of the headlines, and people are going to share things, and they're going to believe what they want to believe. But you should take a step back, and you should just ask yourself, is this a source I know? Is it something that's credible? And is it something that I want to believe? Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Henry. All right. We're going to open it up to questions from our panel and our audience. So if you have a question for Henry, just raise your hand. He'll call on you.
Bye, CJ. Great job.
That's not a question. I have a question. So, did you find anything in here that talks about the balance of fake news as being either more a conservative trend or more a liberal trend? Like, is this something that's sort of equally done by the two main political positions in the country, or is this something that tends to one side or the other, and if so, why?
So the majority of the things that I've read show that conservatives, there's more fake news out there, like it's aiming at conservative people. They want conservative people to share it, but the data shows that conservatives and liberals share them about evenly. So the temptation is there for both, but it's more heavily on the conservative side. But so proportionally, conservatives share it more, but the data shows that if liberals have as much as conservatives do, that more likely than not, it would be equally shared.
So there's like less source material for
liberals. Yeah, there's less for the liberals to share, so they don't share it
rates.
Okay. Correct. Yeah.
So what do you think the main reasons people put out fake news are? Because ultimately it could, instead of like supporting your side, make your side look less credible.
Yeah, so to make money. So when you saw all the advertisements on that one website, every time I clicked on that and I gave them traffic, I gave them money. If my mom clicks on it, she's doing the same thing. So when they share it, I mean, if it's getting clicked on 350,000 times, they're making money, and advertisers see, well, look at all this web traffic to this website. I'll put my website on there, and I'll get hits, and then it's kind of like it just keeps going on that cycle because everybody gets advertisements and they all get money, and it's a cycle that just continues. Yeah.
Do you think fake news has any benefit?
No. I mean, like, no. I can't think of a benefit from fake news other than the person that's writing it. In my thesis, I talked about how there's one writer that makes 10 grand a month from writing fake news, and he doesn't support fake news, but he's conservative, and he writes liberal fake news. So he doesn't care about the impacts because he's making money. He said he used to be a real journalist, but the money's there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brent?
So now that you have learned about fake news, do you find yourself researching the topics before you retweet or share something on Facebook, or do you?
Yeah, usually. And when I shared that Donald Trump picture,
I liked it.
Yeah. Do you remember me sharing?
Yeah.
So when I shared that, I didn't care if it was real. Because right when I saw it, I was like Hillary's got this.
Yep.
All over. But it came from some liberal Occupy Democrat something, and they didn't source where it came from. They just dropped that picture, and so many people shared it. So, like if I share something political, I make sure it's like from the New York Times, CNN, NBC, anything that I recognize. Or if it's not, I typically don't share it. But if I see some data in there, I look to see where the data came from. I had a conversation with my uncle about this, and he's the one that kind of got me onto this. He when he saw that defund article, my grandparents actually shared that about the solar panels, and he commented pretty much all the things that I said. And so he was just, I mean, I learned a lot from him, like make sure that you're looking at the data properly, make sure that the science is there, like actually there, like not just a bunch of nonsense, not a bunch of numbers. You make sure you can understand it before you
Not
just...
alternative facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are millions of people in the world that are using media. How are you going to spread the news that not all of it is true and some of it is fake?
So I think Donald Trump has kind of done that with his platform that he has. He tweets every day about fake news. Like when I say every day, I'm not kidding. Like I follow him and I see it, and so he does tweet a lot about fake news. I think people know about fake news, but I think they're skeptical towards news as like a whole now, because there's people out there saying CNN isn't real. There's people out there saying, I mean, after Donald Trump got elected, all the polls said Hillary Clinton was going to win by a landslide. And so that, I think, has created skepticism as well. So I don't think it's as much how are people going to know like about fake news. I think people need to know how to identify fake news. So which is fake. Yeah.
So given the fact that just like our sort of natural psychological instinct is to be like, yes, this agrees with me, and so it must be true, right? And there have been a bunch of studies that have talked about how seeing that something is debunked doesn't actually like change people's minds,
Right,
to strengthen their position. So given that, like, what can we do to be more sort of responsible and help change other people's opinion, right? Like, we're all educated on this now, and all of you are going to go source your Twitter feeds and your Facebook, I'm
Oh,
sure.
okay.
at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah.
But what can we do on social media to get other people to do this?
So I think it's important to just make sure that you're not sharing anything that's fake. If you do your part and you're sharing if I share something, if I'm friends with everybody in this room and I share something that's fake, everybody in this room sees it. But if I share something that's real news, everybody in this room sees it, and they don't see that fake news anymore. Because if I'm constantly sharing true things, and if I'm sharing something from the New York Times or something that has real data, a real study, like a Pew Research Center, something like that, you guys are all seeing it and it's real. So I think everybody has to do their own part in a way, because
You want to like shift the balance, essentially.
Yeah. So if you're sharing fake news, if you're sharing fake articles, then you're contributing to the whole thing.
Anything else? All right. Thank you very much, Henry. If you'll step outside for
I
just a
didn't
moment.
even use these.
I didn't use
You did not even use those.